A crime without justification, a sinister blend of betrayal and cold-blooded murder. Beginning. In 2012, in a small village in southern France, a hard-working young man named Lucas Martin lived and worked for the railway company. He was a simple man from a respectable family, dreaming only of a happy and stable life. At the age of 24, he decided it was time to marry, having secured a modest apartment suitable for his financial situation. He chose a young woman from his hometown named Elisa Duran, an 18-year-old from a well-regarded family known for their good reputation. When Lucas proposed, there was no objection. He was a serious and responsible man, financially stable despite his modest income. Elisa accepted his proposal, believing he was someone she could rely on. That same year they married, and Elisa moved into his home in the village. Their married life started peacefully, with only the usual minor conflicts of newlyweds. A year later, they had their first child, Matteo, who completely transformed their lives. Lucas was overjoyed with his son, and Elisa appeared to share his happiness. For the following years, Elisa gave birth to 3 more children, Matteo, Ethan, and Clara. The responsibilities and expenses grew, but Lucas worked tirelessly to provide for his family. He continued his job with the railway company, sometimes staying overnight due to work demands. Outwardly, their life seemed stable and happy, even to their closest relatives. The reality was far different. Fateful encounter, Lisa was not content with her life. Despite its stability and the presence of her 4 children, she felt she deserved a better life, but never voiced her dissatisfaction. In 2019, while walking through town, she unexpectedly ran into her cousin, Olivier Renard, a taxi driver who owned his own car. Olivier was her old love, and from the moment their eyes met, the past rekindled. Lisa quickly forgot she was a married woman with 4 children and obligations. He spoke for a long time, and Olivier learned that Elisa was unhappy in her marriage. He exploited her vulnerability, convincing her that she deserved something better. First, Elisa resisted the temptation to see him again. Only hours later, she called him. Soon, he asked to meet her again. She initially refused, but eventually she agreed. This time, the meeting wasn't on the streets, fearing they might be seen. Instead, she invited him to her home after her husband left for work, finding an excuse to send the children away. Olivier visited her at her marital home, and things escalated quickly. He ended up committing adultery in the very bedroom she shared with her husband. Afterward, Elisa felt overwhelming guilt and ordered Olivier to leave, swearing she would never see him again. He knew her too well. Just a day later, she called him again, asking to see him one last time. It was not the last time. Olivier began visiting her home regularly, and soon, Elisa could no longer associate her house with her husband. Her affection for Lucas completely faded. Even during intimate moments, she treated him with coldness and indifference. Lucas noticed her change but assumed she was simply overwhelmed with childcare responsibilities. Path to murder. After 6 months, Olivier became possessive, insisting that he should be a real part of Elisa's life rather than hiding. He convinced her that the best solution was to introduce him to her husband and children as a distant cousin. Since he was a taxi driver, he could offer transportation for the family, making his presence seem natural. Lisa liked the idea, and soon Olivier became a familiar face to Lucas and the children. At first, nothing seemed suspicious, but as time passed, Lucas noticed Olivier's unsettling glances toward his wife and their odd interactions. He also observed how Elisa belittled him in front of Olivier. Lucas began to sense something was wrong, though he never suspected the extent of Elisa's betrayal. During this time, Elisa and Olivier rented an apartment in a nearby city where they met as lovers. One day, Lucas confronted Elisa about her unusual behavior. She exploded in anger, accusing him of doubting her without reason, swearing she was an honorable woman who would rather die than be accused of infidelity. Lucas believed her, but he asked only one thing, that Olivier should no longer visit their home. She agreed. The murder plan. But Olivier was unwilling to step aside, urged Elisa to find a way to eliminate Lucas. Lisa, however, saw another problem, her children. She wasn't willing to care for them alone after her husband's death, nor did she want Olivier to bear that responsibility. She decided they all had to go. Their plan took months to develop. Eventually, Olivier came up with a sinister idea. He traveled to Paris and bought poison typically used for animals to avoid suspicion. The day of the crime, Elisa told Lucas that their youngest daughter was sick and needed to see a doctor. He took her to the clinic while the other 3 children remained at home. Olivier met Elisa at the clinic and discreetly handed her poison juice bottles. After checking in at the clinic, Elisa returned to Lucas and handed him the juice, claiming it was for the children to keep them hydrated in the heat. Minutes later, Lucas called her in panic, telling her that the children had collapsed unconscious and that he was experiencing severe stomach pain. When she arrived at the hospital, she already knew her 3 children were dead. She was shocked to learn that Lucas had survived. The downfall of the murderers. From the beginning, the police suspected foul play. Viewing security cameras, they saw Elisa handing the juice to her family without drinking any herself. Later, they caught footage of her smiling on the hospital stairs after the incident. Under pressure, Elisa confessed to everything, as did Olivier. Lucas, having narrowly escaped death, was left in unimaginable shock, unable to comprehend the betrayal and murder plot that had destroyed his family. And so, what began as an illicit affair ended in a horrific crime, with 3 innocent children dead and a father who lost everything.